A lot of those people and new people were DMing me, they were messaging me, they were saying, hey David, like what's going on between Israel and Palestine? And this time around I was able to give the facts, I was able to give the truth. And some of those people were actually starting to post pro-Israel stuff, like I stand with Israel, and I was able to make an impact. Some people were DMing me who were posting pro-Palestinian stuff from Louisville, and after I was giving them the facts, they removed their posts. And so what I would say is, it's going to come up. People know you're Jewish, and you guys need to be ready to be prepared to answer those tough questions, because again, if we can't represent our own country, no one will for us. So yeah.
Nicely done. Hi everyone, my name is Rena. I'm from the community, but I work for Stand With Us full time. I am the Executive Director of Campus Affairs, which is fancy for I'm helping college students deal with anti-Semitism. I'm helping them deal with tough questions that they might encounter. And I'm also helping them actively educate about Israel. Because in David's example, there's so many people who don't know. They don't know, but they know they want to know. What I'm going to talk about today is not as much what to say, but more so how to say it when you're engaging in conversation with people. How to really know who you're talking to, what their knowledge base is, and how you can engage and impact them. Out of curiosity, how many of you have heard of the 10-80-10 rule? Oh, shit. Okay. Okay. I don't know. Who? Okay, so let's invite our experts here who teach this class. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so it's like 10% of the people who are pro-Israel will say pro-Israel, and then like 80% who don't know, who aren't pro-Israel, are like, we forgot,
What's your name?
Rachel.
Rachel. Okay, Rachel started. Anyone want to finish where Rachel left off?
So 10% of people are like pro-Israel, no matter what. That's how they were brought up. No matter what you tell them, they're not coming out of your argument not pro-Israel. And then there's the opposite 10% that no matter what you tell them, no matter what, they're going to be anti-Israel. They don't want the state to exist. And there's 80% of people that are just in the middle.
Thank you. What's your name?
Jacob.
Jacob. I'm trying my best to remember everyone's names. Thank you. Rachel and Jacob tag teamed it. That was perfect. When you're engaging in conversation about Israel, if you're encountering a tough question, the first thing you want to be able to assess is, who am I talking to? Is this someone from the 80% or is it someone from the 10%? Am I debating or am I educating? What do you think are some good ways to figure out who we're talking to? Sorry?
Their tone.
Their tone? Okay.
Their background, if you know it. Like, if you're able to find out what their background is, I feel like that would be a big part.
Definitely.
Are there questions? Are there questions?
By their questions. One thing we teach at Stand With Us, it's a methodology called ARM. The first part of ARM, A, is to address or acknowledge. That's where you're going to use this space to either explain your humanity to someone, right? I'm not fighting against you. We want peace in the world. I hope you do. I know I do. And that's also a space where you can ask questions. And I'm going to give you an example as to why you asking questions to someone else's question is helpful. Anyone here a student at Columbia? I was like, yes. Okay. That was very entertaining. So, a few years ago, Stand With Us brought 2 South Africans to speak at Columbia, to speak to a bunch of students. And of course, the anti-Israel activists were eagerly in the room waiting to ask a question. They ask the question, they say, how can you support Israel when Israel's practicing apartheid? How can you support, knowing that you lived through apartheid, how can you support a country that's instituting apartheid? The speaker's first question said, thank you for asking that question. I'm so happy that you're here. Let me ask you, for everyone in the room who doesn't know what apartheid is, can you define it for me? And this person was sitting there like, well, it's the set of laws, and they're like, really bad laws. It was very clear this person had no idea what they were talking about. And this was is there a fly in here? Is that what I got. Sorry, I got distracted. so many of these loud voices on social media, the ones that were eager to post between end of April and June, even that are still talking about it, are from that 80%. They know they should have an opinion, but they don't know where to get the information and not necessarily interested in spending the time to get the information. So they're just gonna pick the first thing they see that sounds sexy, that sounds woke, that won't get them canceled, and that's what they're gonna perpetuate. So when you asking questions to someone, you're just getting to know who are you. If you ask, someone says, Israel treats the Palestinians really bad. Oh my gosh, okay, these seconds are flying. Okay.
That's fine.
We have 5 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna go through the rest of my analogy. The A, address, acknowledge. That's where you're gonna ask your questions, get to know who you're talking to. It's also going to be where you can show your humanity. If someone's talking about how innocent people are suffering, you're not gonna say, you're wrong. Why aren't you gonna respond that way?
We defensive.
But it sounds so insensitive. We don't want innocent people to suffer. We don't want innocent people to get. That's not what we want. That's a common misconception of Israelis and people who are pro-Israel. That we don't care what happens to anyone but ourselves. Everyone else can have a shitty situation. We're not that interested.
So what do you say? You just understand and then you get them what's right?
Yeah, you want to find an area of commonality. Right? You're talking about innocent people and how they suffer. You're talking about Palestinians suffering in Gaza. I'm going to agree with you. They're definitely suffering. And it's not right. And I'm so happy you're talking about this. More people need to be talking about this. In your reframe, that's where you're going to hit them with the facts. You're going to say, let's look at where that suffering is coming from. Let's look at who's causing it. Who's causing the suffering of the Palestinians in Gaza? Hamas. What's Hamas doing?
Holding down.
Yeah, they're putting their people in harm's way. They are putting terrorist infrastructure, rocket launchers, all kinds of horrible things in kindergartens, hospitals, people's homes. Let's talk about the suffering. I agree with you, but let's talk about where it's coming from. In your reframe, that's where you're going to give facts. My recommendation is keep it 1 to 3, keep it tight, keep it short, because people have short attention spans. Also, you each have personal stories that you should be using. One of the most common claims against Israel that it's a white, ethno-European state that's based on colonialism that was started because of the Holocaust. What about my family that had to flee Syria? The Holocaust had nothing to do with me. But look what Israel did for my family. If not for Israel, I don't know if I'd be here. Why does my story not matter? All of your family stories, your experiences should be part of your response. Because the other side, they don't really talk about facts, they talk about stories. This person died. That happened to my family. What about our families? We have to own that narrative and use it as part of our response. They can't argue. They can't tell you your history is wrong. That's your history. That's your experience, your family's experience. And then in the M, that's where you have your message. That's where you're going to wrap everything up in a pretty little bow and see from there where you're at. You're going to take the temperature of the person you're talking to. So if we were to take the example, Israel's using disproportionate force along the Gaza border. Israel's doing horrible things to Gaza. How might you address or acknowledge? Where might you find common ground there?
You want to say it again?
Israel, let's say we use the example, Israel's using disproportionate force along the Gaza border.
So we could say that it's because the people in Gaza are protecting themselves. They're only focusing on launching missiles and not protecting the missiles like we have the Iron Dome and all different protection methods like that.
Yeah.
And it's true that they are suffering more casualties, but it's because of their focus on offense rather than defense.
What's your name?
Zach.
Zach, that's all great. All great. That's part of like the reframe more so. We're giving you the context, we're giving you the facts. In that area, I'm not going to tell you, sometimes I also think Israel uses disproportionate force along with it. I see what you mean. We're not going to say that, right? We want to find common ground, but if there is no common ground, we're not giving up who we are. We're not checking our values at the door. For that, you might say, that I'm seeing that all over the media. I'm seeing it everywhere. I would love to really talk about it and explain what's happening. You can kind of use it that way. It doesn't always have to be common ground. You can find, what's your name?
Jamie.
Jamie. Jamie was like, well, it feels kind of, I feel like your reaction was like, it feels kind of weird to do that, but if I have a place to do that, awesome. If I don't, it's okay. I just want you to know I heard you, and I want to talk to you. If you are educating someone, that's telling them, I want to talk it out with you. I want to take this journey with you. And if you're debating someone, that will drive them crazy. They want to get into a fight with you. They want to make a spectacle. You're here to say, I'm not doing that with you. So reframe, Zach gave us some facts. What would our message be? I'm almost done. Yeah. What would that message be, let's say? Zach gave us our facts. Like, let's talk about what's actually happening, why that tension is there, what's happening. What might be our message? A positive note to end on, maybe. And taking the temperature.
Maybe that that Israel doesn't have an army and they have a defense force, and that they're only using it once there's a need for it, and that they're not the ones going ahead and starting the wars or the battles in the Middle East.
Jacob, I'd even take it a step further. I would say the Palestinian people deserve better. They deserve a government that's going to protect them, that's not going to put them in harm's way. We see that for Israel. Palestinians deserve the same thing. Hamas is not where it's at. That's your message. It's saying, I want a hopeful future. I don't want to see this. And you could see from there how that person responds. If this is like a real 80%er and they're like, that's a good point. I also don't want people to suffer. Or if they double down, in which case, no, don't even bother. So I want you to really practice this methodology. In any argument you have. I argue with my husband, I use arm all the time. He's always apologizing to me, even when I'm wrong. It works. I'm not exaggerating. It works. Because it keeps you calm, it keeps you collected, and it tells that person, I want to engage with you. If you get upset, that's your problem. That's not my problem. You want to bring the battle here? I'm not here to fight you. I want peace. I want to have normal conversations. You're not interested? Go talk to someone else. Go yell into the internet, the black hole of the internet. So what I want to leave you off with is to practice that. Learn the facts, like David said, and practice the methodology so you feel comfortable in any environment you're in, whether it's 10% or 80%, in sharing your narrative, sharing our narrative, and putting out the facts. Sounds good?